So, the past 24 hours, kind of precisely, I found out through the website that I was gonna order, that I ordered, you know, half of my stuff from, that they were gonna be like, yeah, actually, how about we, like, deliver that, like, at the end of the week, and also, like, May next year. So I was like, well, that doesn't exactly work then, does it? Like, I don't like this idea, considering that I basically had planned to just sort it out on Monday, so that if there were to be any issues, I could go ahead and, you know, like, troubleshoot where necessary. Because in typical fashion for me, if I try to upgrade anything or change anything or make like a positive change, I first have to deal with several hours of headaches, because that's just how it goes. Because of that reason, I told Noah beforehand, it's like, look bro, like, we're probably gonna be getting a little familiar with each other. And I will also probably be, you know, I also found a Reddit thread beforehand and bookmarked that, just in case stuff was gonna go apeshit. And then it did. Upon me successfully getting everything plugged in and everything like that, my PC was not giving me any display, so completely black screens, you know, and the GPU, everything was running as it should. You know, the things lit up, like everything was going. At that point, I was like, all right, well, this is gonna be a fun one. So I knew that no one was having had similar issues. So I sent him a DM, and I was like, so you know, we're about to become like really close friends because, you know, I'm going through the same shit as you went through as well. As it turns out, Noah had different ideas, or well, had different issues than I did, which then resulted into me trying to figure out how I could update my BIOS so that my CPU would actually work on the motherboard, because officially it is not supported out of the box and you have to upgrade your BIOS in order to be able to use the CPU. But how are you going to update a BIOS without being able to see anything on your screens? Luckily, I had bought a motherboard that allowed me to update my BIOS without even seeing anything, and just press a button on the back of my CPU, or motherboard rather, sorry. So then I had to put my USB into my PC at a specific slot after I copy and pasted all the files onto it, thinking it would be fine, you know. But in order to press that teeny tiny button, I had to then borrow one of the earrings from Mel, the girlfriend, so I could actually press it. Upon doing so, the first time, it didn't exactly work, because I just plunked all the files on the USB, thinking it was going to be fine, because, you know, surely it's smart enough to go and do that. You were going to message her and ask her how mad I was? No, I was calm throughout the whole thing, for the simple reason that I knew beforehand it was going to happen, right? Like, I mean, she had a few eyebrows raised when I was standing there, you know, like trying to sort out my PC without wearing any pants, or just standing there in my underwear. Because, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? I'm like, well, this is gonna make me sound like a crazy person, but I know that the pair of pants that I was wearing that day was gonna give me static issues, because when I'm using those set of pants and I'm sitting on this chair right here during winter when it's colder, I always get like a shock, like, from it, right? I know that there is a chance of it being static, so to be extra sure that I was not gonna like ruin a CPU worth like 600-700 euros, especially when it's like the most, you know, when you're working with a motherboard and electronics and that sort of stuff, just avoid it altogether. And I literally told her as well, like, you know, whatever you do, just stay 1 or 2 steps away from this area where I was working on the PC. And she was laughing at me and stuff like that, because, like, I was sounding like a crazy person, but it's like, no, I'm being genuine. The slightest spark on a motherboard, a CPU, whatever like that, could completely ruin it. I mean, obviously my first thought was to ask you for help, Noah, for the simple reason that I knew you were having those issues. So I was like, you know, if it's gonna fuck up, I can ask Noah, because he literally went through the whole thing. Like, you know, he basically saved me like what is gonna be like a week or 2 of troubleshooting. It's very unlikely, but I'm not gonna take any risk, right? I just simply am refusing to take any risk with this shit. Because, you know, like, ruining the PC basically means that it, like, because I knew that today like Mel had to go home and everything, but that's a story for later because that's a whole other thing. Put everything on the USB thinking it was gonna be totally fine, only to find out that the moment that I did, it kind of sadly didn't, because I plugged it in, used Mel's earring to push in a tiny button, and it immediately just shut down right away. So that didn't exactly go as planned, but luckily I had that Reddit thread saved, which basically told me to change the file name of the BIOS file and just only use that, which actually ended up being the thing that then flashed the BIOS. But then I still didn't have any display, which was weird because at that point I knew for a fact that the BIOS that I was using was the correct one and was supporting the CPU, so that should not be the issue. However, then I did a bit of yapping to Noah, and he was like, well, just double check all your cables. And I was like, I am certain of the fact that that the cables are connected properly, right? But just for the sake of making sure and trying again, I then went to check up on them. I even went as far as to unplug and replug the CPU cables. And while I was there, and I took my PC like outside of here and basically did everything in the living room so I could like have the PC open and run everything and check out the fans and check out the everything, only to find out that my CPU fan, like my CPU cooler fan, wasn't running, which was weird to me because I had plugged it in. But then I realized that there was actually the middle one that I plugged in, because in between the two coolers of the CPU there was also a fan which you then stick in the middle, that sort of thing. So then I was like, well, what I can do is I can use the second cable that was attached to it as well, and I'll plug that in the optional CPU fan thingy. So so that will start running. This is where you're probably gonna laugh at me, because upon me trying, I spent probably like a good 5 minutes on my own trying to see if I can get that in. Now, obviously, at this point, the large CPU fan was already in there, and I have, well, let's say rather large hands. So then I took it upon myself, like, like Mel was just chilling, playing some Fortnite with Monkey. And I was asking, like, hey, would you mind giving me a hand? Because obviously, she has much smaller hands than I do. I was like, yeah, sure. So she tried to help me out. But then for the next another 5 minutes or so, we both tried to see if we could figure out how we could get this, CPU cable to connect. It turned out that the CPU fan cable that was trying to connect also had pins in it. Basically meaning that I was trying to do this. I was trying to connect pins with pins. That was rather embarrassing. But through that, I then rewired all the cables and all stuff like that. So basically that every single fan had its own dedicated port. So like, that ended up being fine. It's now just running with one fan and it's okay. Yeah, basically the fan things were touching tips. Finally, ran some tests. Got the thing running, but I mean at this point, like, we're talking by the time that everything was running and I was doing actually like that I was playing a match of Call of Duty to try to see if it was gonna have the same issue as Noah was having, where his fans would start spinning like mad after like 5 minutes. I just played a quick round, figured out that my FPS had more than doubled even with OBS open, and the difference between having OBS open and not having OBS open is non-existent, which is me. Oh, never mind, I just realized that I went the wrong way. Nice, I just went back to where I came from. Translating into that, it's been a very worthwhile upgrade, and even though it was like 2 a.m. by the time it was done, and everything in my body was aching from constantly lifting up a heavy PC back and forth, and my fingers being completely scratched at the tips of my fingers, no longer having any feeling in there. But hey, worthwhile upgrade, and it turned out alright. But that's not where the 20... Shout out to Mel as well, yes. But then you fast forward to the next morning, where Mel basically has to kind of go home, which she didn't want to, but she has uni tomorrow. So I was like, you're gonna have to go home because you got uni tomorrow morning. Let's just put it this way, to give you the long story short. On the way back, or on the way, you know, dropping her off, I sat through about an hour of the silent treatment because she was mad at me, rightfully so, and another hour of music that had to do with home, take me back home, you know, like run away, basically everything to do with wanting to go back home, and, you know, why are you doing this to me, you evil, evil man? How is she mad at you when she got shit to do in Germany? Well, the realistic thing is she just didn't want to go home, right? Because, you know, we like spending time together, obviously. But I was basically being the responsible asshole that just went, look, you, like, this is something that, you know, I understand, and I don't want you to go either. But, you know, we also have to be a little bit realistic, and I don't really want you to start, like, you know, like skipping classes and stuff like that, especially if I can help it. Basically, for the entire hour of her playing all this music, she was constantly giving me this look. Like even until the very last minute, she was like, "Turn around." But this is where it ends, because naturally, in typical luck from yours truly, what happened afterwards, on the way back, is what I would deem as to be Mel's revenge. On the way back, I sat still in traffic, like not moving at all, engine off, for 1.5 hours. There was a massive crash, and when I say massive crash, I mean I drove past a truck that was on fire. At that point extinguished, but the entire road was closed. Because like the moment I was driving and I saw, hey, there's some traffic coming up, I was like, darn. But okay, that's fine, we'll deal with it. But then I look to my left and I see a very large amount of smoke coming from the area of where the traffic is. And I was like, I got a feeling we're gonna be here for a little while. And then I was! And then finally, after all, like 1.5 hours, we could finally start moving again. But obviously, given the time that it was, and everyone was also going home, the people that actually have a job. No, I got home at 7:15. I came home, I quickly had something to eat, and then I went to stream. Brother, what normally is about a journey of about 2 hours, if I recall, give or take, with, you know, some stuff, took 5 hours. So yeah, that was fun. That was fun. It's been a particularly interesting 24 hours, chat. But we're here, we have a new PC, and I'm back being all alone. So I guess it's you know, we won some, we lose some. I think it's still net negative though, because Mel isn't here, but hey, you know.